I'm Billy S, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking about Nine Souls, a 2024 Sekiro-like indie game that received critical praise for its fantastic combat system, intriguing world design, and well-written cast of characters. You play as Yi on a quest to defeat the Nine Souls aboard New Kunlun in a Kill Bill-style revenge plot as you aim to take down everything you helped to build. And throughout your journey, you face a variety of well-designed and interesting bosses in this Taoism meets cyberpunk world. For this video, I'm specifically ranking the bosses with a major title card like you see on screen. There are a ton of mini-bosses scattered around the map, but I'm not ranking them in this video as they're just souped up larger versions of regular enemies. Side note, I will be attempting to use correct pronunciation for all the various Chinese names. I'll leave a link below to a helpful SoundCloud that provides some examples. I want to try and be as respectful as I can to the source material, so if anybody is natively Chinese or understands these names in their correct pronunciations, let me know how I do in the comments. Without further ado, all 11 Nine Souls bosses ranked. Let me know your favorite down below. At number 11, we have Headless Xingtian, who can only be fought after the point of no return if you've completed Chio's questline. Here, the scholarly brother fails to defeat his weaponized sibling, and you have to finish the job in his place. Our second bout with Xingtian just isn't that fun to me. He still has his moveset from his first fight earlier in the game with his heavy swinging axes that are easy to block, but you have to deal with constantly falling blobs upon each slam of his axe, as well as two mutants that appear during the fight to distract you. Xingtian also has the ability to heal from damage, which can only be interrupted with a charged strike, a cloud piercer arrow, or a ki blast, and I didn't know about the former two options, so I was just trying to keep my ki topped up to blast him out of healing anytime he tried. The game is nice enough to provide a respawn point outside his boss room, which is a nice touch, but Xingtian ultimately doesn't have enough going for him in his fight to even come close to the general quality of the actual Souls. And his plot relevance was more interesting to me in his first fight than now, as Chio doesn't even live to see his brother slain. It's also a very easily missable encounter, as after the point of no return, you're railroaded back to the Four Seasons Pavilion, and most players won't think to check the map to see there's an NPC in the top left of the research center. Not my cup of tea. At number 10, we have Gormong, the second of the Nine Souls we can encounter in the game. Being born into a barren kingdom with no crops, she found herself dedicated to agriculture and providing for the people of Yumin. She also genetically modified herself to acquire bird-like legs and wings to better move around her environment, which is how you see her in-game. Her fight is a bit of a letdown because she doesn't do anything herself, which fits with her personality, but doesn't make for a very engaging battle. She has two servants which resemble jiangshis from Chinese mythology, zombies that would hop around, their arms outstretched. Whether you attack the bigger one or the little one first, your goal is to kill one of them so that Gormong will come down from her throne and ring her bell to revive them. See, she attached them with these collars that would prevent them from dying, forever loyal to her, to the point where she can just ring her bell and bring them back from the dead. You can use your Azure arrows to do a quick damage to both opponents, and because of the way they attack frontally, you can also just dodge behind them most of the time to avoid their melee attacks. If you can kill one, Gormong will come down to revive them, allowing you to hit her. But in this same moment, you can kill the other Jiangshi so that at no point are both minions alive at the same time. This forces Gormong into a loop where she'll keep coming down to revive them, leading to a quick victory. I was hoping for a phase 2, a moment where Gormong has to fight us herself, but it never came. A real shame. It makes sense, she's a farmer still, but for a gank fight, it's a relatively tame experience, and is more than doable with the basic starting equipment, providing a simple challenge that lulls you into a false sense of security when it comes to the rest of the boss roster, because oh my god does it get harder from here. And Gormong gets to see it all, as we don't even kill her, we do something worse. We pop on one of her mind control collars and leave her, like her minions, as a living corpse, unable to die, forced to suffer. A fitting conclusion. At number 9, we have Kung Hee, the boss of the prison. Admittedly one of my least favourite areas in the game, the prison escape ended up being a tedious affair, made more difficult by some relatively aggressive guards that wouldn't let me get a word in edgeways. As it turns out, the guards all spawn from Kung Hee, and if we kill him, we kill all the guards. He has 3 phases to his fight, where you need to damage him until he reaches half health each time. The first 2 instances will then require you to hack into nearby terminals, with the last ending the fight. His main ability is to summon zombies that will attack the player, forcing you to cull the minions so you don't get overwhelmed. He alternates between summoning zombie dogs, which can be killed in a few hits, and zombie flyers, who use their guns to attack Yi as he fights. It's the second phase onwards where things get hectic, as a zombie jailer is summoned, with their attack pattern being much more aggressive than the previous enemy types. For me, what worked was just bursting the jailer down as quickly as possible, followed by attacking Kung Hee with everything I had. The trick is that Kung Hee will shortly revive the jailer, so you need to finish each phase quick enough to avoid this too much. He also has a spike attack that moves outwards from the middle of the room, but I rarely saw it. If you're good at using your key charge, you should be fine. It's not a hard fight, it's just a slightly tedious one. It's also the last boss fight before you get the unbounded counter power-up, which just changes the game tremendously, so of course Kung Hee wasn't going to rank highly in that sense. Killing him at the end feels like a true mercy, and allows you to fully explore the prison at your leisure. No more guards to bother you. Eradicating those jailers might just be one of the most cathartic moments in the game, a worthwhile reward to be sure. At number 8, we have Jingtian, the first encounter in the warehouse zone. As I explained in the prior entry, Jingtian is the brother of Chiyo, the game's merchant. Except unlike Chiyo, who gained sentience through the viewing of a poem, Jingtian did not. Thus, he is but a weapon that Yen Lao sends after you during your chase in the warehouse district. Now, admittedly, this isn't a dynamic fight by any means. Jingtian has 2 different variations of their axe-swinging combos. They can heal like in the second encounter, and their Crimson attack sends electric pulses along the floor that can hurt you. The challenge comes from the small arena, meaning you can't outrun the boss, and you're always within reach. If you can get the parry timings, you'll do a lot of internal damage, and can full control his ass to high heaven. But if not, it just means you've got to get better at the game. It's not a hard skill check, but it is a skill check nonetheless. Why he ranks here is more because of the story. Prior to this, Chiyo mentions that their brother lives on the west side of the island, and we just opened up a bridge leading back to said merchant. So suddenly encountering the brother for the first time as a boss was a complete blindside to me. I was expecting another NPC or a dead character, not an actual fight. The cutscene prior also gets it up a few notches, with Yen Lao saying the most stupid bullshit to bide time, while Yi's dumbass just sits there and lets it happen. I had such a silly smile on my face the whole time. Jingtian is just the best of the worst, with the following 7 fights being the biggest jump in quality I have seen in a video game. At number 7, we have General Ying Chao, the first major boss of the game, fought inside the Radiant Pagoda. We've faced mini-bosses up to this point, but General Ying Chao is the first true boss battle, and he makes it known with cinematic flair. I love his design. Clearly inspired by Sekiro's horse riding, Yobu Masataka Oniwa, Nine Souls hit him with a fusion ray and gave us a centaur mech to face instead. His spear is deceptively difficult to parry on a first run, as his delays are a little more pronounced than the regular enemies you've been facing. Now, am I looking back at my footage, having beaten the game, thinking, Billy, what the fuck are you doing? Yes. But this is the tutorial boss, and we are allowed to legally suck in our footage. My strategy was to do a few hits, and once my 2 key charges stacked, to do a key burst to do a little bit of damage. Internal damage just isn't a realistic win condition in the early game, as you don't have access to the Hedgehog Jade that allows your perfect parries to inflict internal damage, so you just have to make do with small bursts. His run and charge drag was the toughest move for me to predict, but for my winning run, I was parrying like a pro. In Nine Souls, there are two types of normal parries, an imprecise parry and a perfect parry. The imprecise variant will block the damage but cause your health bar to turn red, meaning you've taken internal damage. Perfect parrying, or waiting a short amount of time, will then heal that internal damage. So if you know your parry timings, even if not perfectly, you can still scrape through a fight. Phase 2, meanwhile, has an amazing power-up transition that feels so anime, followed by two new moves added to his arsenal. A red attack slam, which you can't block yet as you don't unlock that ability until the mid-game, meaning you need to dodge away or into it, as well as a red attack wreathed in green. These attacks can be countered by jumping into the air and using the air parry, the Tai Chi kick. I love the air parry. It's not directional, so you can use it as a get out of jail free card in a lot of situations, and when it lands on a green crimson attack, it inflicts healthy internal damage, making your ki blast far more potent when you land it. The fact that this is being taught in the opening boss fight and is arguably the most important mechanic towards succeeding throughout the rest of the game is insane to me. It's basically Nine Souls' equivalent of the Mikiri counter, and Ying Chao utilizes it so that you have all the time you need to learn how to handle it. All set to a hype as heck music track that gets you really pumped when you're dodging and weaving through that Phase 2 moveset. Just be careful of your positioning, don't get too greedy, and you will succeed. Easily one of the best starting bosses in a game that I have covered. At number 6, we have Yen Lao, the third soul of the game, found in the Warehouse District. Apparently, this is a fight that a lot of people don't like, as instead of fighting the old codger himself, we're fighting a giant crane game. The Skyrending Claw is a machine piloted by Yen Lao, and while its moveset isn't terribly diverse, I think the setup, the unique battle perspective, and the simple way it innovates in Phase 2 makes Yen Lao very memorable to me. The main attack is a Crimson Grab that you have to dash out of the way from. It has a move where it'll swing from side to side in the arena, which is prime parry material, and sometimes he'll mix up by feinting which side of the arena he'll start on, which can catch you off guard due to the directional parry system. He has a move where he summons 4 lasers which move from side to side, and you can choose to either follow the lasers or dash through them to attack the crane for more damage. Lastly, he can shrink the arena down, making the walls climbable, and he'll attempt to snipe you from afar. I love that if the sniper shot actually hits the claw, it'll knock it down for an easy stun. Phase 2, meanwhile, adds an extra moving laser to the Crimson attack and the side-to-side parry, forcing you to be more careful with your positioning, while the multi-laser attack has 6 lasers now, and there's less room to move, making it harder to punish the boss. Could we have seen a little more to this fight with another move or two? Yes, but I'm really happy with what we got, and I think it's a rather fitting battle for the eldest of the souls. Especially love that the ending involves us using the giant laser on the crane to shoot into Yen Lao's room and confront him in his final moments. Very trippy visual, really cleverly designed. But the jump between Yen Lao and my top 5 is just so vast, I won't lie to you. At number 5, we have the Fungs, Fushi and Nua, found at the top of the Empyrean District. A gank fight done right, this 2-stage battle showcases the bond between siblings, while also having one of the most disturbing arenas within the game, this brothel where they entertain away, waiting for the end. With Fushi fully succumbed to the infection that came from his treatment for the virus wiping out the Solarians, it's honestly a really disturbing premise that he's being kept alive unintelligibly at the whims of his sister, who can't let go of her sibling, to the point of very clear incestuous feelings, which is accurate to the Chinese mythology they come from. Fushi starts off with a relatively learnable Phase 1 moveset. He's got surprisingly fast attacks, demanding a real knowledge of his timings if you want to have any chance of succeeding in Phase 2. He has an ancient Chinese instrument as his weapon of choice, and he will combo you into oblivion with it. The downward slam that he sometimes follows up with a fast stab caught me way more than I'd like to admit. His mix-ups are difficult enough that you have to be prepared for multiple combo outcomes, and combined with rather egregious hitboxes, Fushi quickly became one of my more frustrating fights in the game. I love the claw scratch that he uses to stop players who try to dash behind him, and how if you want to parry it on the ground, you need to do a quick turn or an air parry to avoid it. Then there's his Crimson Slam, which you need to unbound counter. Yes, it's technically avoidable, but it's your best opportunity to get internal damage in the fight. Phase 1 takes a bit of time to get used to, but I admittedly got very sick of how his hitboxes feel more broken the closer you are to his center of gravity. I had a lot of moments in my 50+ attempts where I got hit by attacks I didn't feel visually hit me in animation. Phase 2 is where Nuwa comes in, and she is an interesting addition. While initially overwhelming, as most Phase 2s tend to be in Nine Souls, I learned quickly that Nuwa is the one dictating the pace of the fight. It may seem like she's randomly spamming attacks at you, but that isn't the case. If she uses the small trail of explosions that follows Yi, which she always starts with in Phase 2, Fushi will always do a jump slam towards the end. Are the snakes being summoned in alternating columns? Fushi will always try to uppercut you, then drag himself across the arena. Once you understand each setup, the fight becomes less hectic and more about just mastering their new combos. The only exception for me came from the two homing swords, which could combo with just about any of Fushi's moves, and would often overwhelm me to the point of panic. But I will say, the Fongs taught me the precise mechanics of the unbound counter. The two swords into the Crimson Slam attack can only be dealt with if you click parry for the first sword, then click and hold parry for the second sword, allowing the unbound counter to charge up in time to block the Crimson Slam. I initially thought I had to parry, and then parry hold a third time for the unbound counter, but that's not the case. You can charge it after doing a regular parry. It may sound so basic for so many players, but it wasn't clear in the unbound counter tutorial, and yet learning Trial by Fire made the concept stick in my mind, which was perfect for the fight against Egong later in the game. Even with Fushi hitbox issues, I still think the Fongs are fantastic. It's just the caliber of the bosses is rocketing up. That death was brutal, by the way. Nuwa didn't deserve that. At number 4, we have G, the soul of the Grotto of Scriptures. You can fight him or the Fongs in any order, but I personally think G is best left till last, because the Grotto of Scriptures feels like the end game area. You find the hidden tomb of Lear, the rhizomatic bomb needed for the true ending, and G just feels more important as a character because you've met him on your journey in New Kunlun. We know G, he's cool, so when it's revealed he's the soul we have to fight, it's kinda heartbreaking for the player, especially when you learn his backstory. G is the Kunlun Immortal, a figure who has existed for a very long time. He's seen countless rises and falls of various historical figures, and craves his own curtain call. His divination ability says he will kill us, and so we fight not because we want to, but because G is forcing us to. And his fight is super unique. He's a mage who wields a series of daggers and ancient relics. I love that his daggers can act like boomerangs, zooming past the player, and sometimes getting summoned back towards G so you can never feel safe. His main mechanic is the series of orbs that rotates around him for a short period of time. It'll land on a symbol which denotes G's next attack, but if you Tai Chi kick one of the orbs while they're rotating, you can select that one, which is important as one of G's orbs will always be a free heal or top up for your bow. So there's an element of gambling in our Nine Souls, something I find really fascinating. The toughest move for me is his small black hole that will try to suck you in while G sends knives at you from multiple directions. That, and his relics that create crimson shockwaves you have to dash through. If you can smash said relic, it cancels the move, so there is some risk-reward there. His phase 2, meanwhile, is a little more hectic. He can create a big black hole which sends knives out in a fan, which will then retract after a short period. He has all the previous attacks from phase 1, and will simply just use everything a bit faster. The best time for me to counter was his Tai Chi dash, as you can air parry him for some good internal damage, and it's very predictable as he always uses it as the end of specific combos. And that's a good word for G, predictable. Which is ironic for a soothsayer, a divinator, one who claims to be the most unpredictable of the lot. but I think after doing the Fungs, where I was very frustrated, having an easier fight that gave me a short reprieve was most welcome. I think he's brilliantly designed, well balanced, a great character, and the twist that he lied to Yi about his divination and that he actually saw Yi killing him hit pretty good. I figured that was the case, but it's nice to have that confirmation before Ji finally passes. Accepting his own death effectively tees up Yi's own character arc for the true ending, so Ji's impact was certainly felt in the story. I really want to fight him again. It's a fight I know I could get so good at if I wanted to. At number 3, we have Jie Chun, the soul of the Transmutation Zone. If there was a boss to take the Genichiro Ashina role from Sekiro into 9 Souls, Jie Chun fits the bill. This is a fight that amps up the difficulty tremendously, to the point where if you don't know what you're doing, you will never beat him. And it's a long time coming, as earlier in the game, he knocks you out in one hit, tortures you on an electrocution rack Metal Gear style, and forces you to break out of prison while threatening your human companions. Basically, he's a fucking psycho, and it makes him so entertaining to fight.
Nice.
He is a steroid freak, though in this world they're called transmutations, and he spends a lot of time soaking in his transmutation tank like Goku on Planet Namek, but this is also an opportunity for the player. See, earlier in the factory level, you can find an item called a Gene Eradicator. If you use this on the machine before fighting Jie Chun, you weaken his first phase. This feels like the intended way to fight this guy, because when phase 2 hits later, that weakness is gone. It's just an extra way for players to learn the phase 1 without as much danger. Because believe me, his mix-ups are dangerous regardless of whether he's poisoned or not. He's basically 2D Morgott from Elden Ring, in that his fighting style is just summoning a shit ton of weapons and making it so Yi can't figure out what's coming next. You have to react on the fly, parry as you go, and let instinct take hold. He can heal by surrounding himself in a shield, but you can break it with a simple charged attack. He has traps he can throw into the air that always manage to hurt me when they detonated upon hitting the ground. And once phase 2 starts, baby, you ain't healing easily. I love how he effectively goes Super Saiyan in his power-up, moving with a golden afterimage and breaking out his crimson attacks. I found the regular one to be easy to unbounded counter, but I really struggled to react to his spear thrust. I was still rusty with the Tai Chi kick, it honestly wasn't something I regularly landed on bosses until the end game. But looking back at the footage, it wasn't as brutal as I thought. He gives you a couple of moments, his attacks aren't delayed, so they're easy to parry, even if imperfectly, and I feel I could do a much better job against Jie Chun now. I'm still a fan of how I finished him off though, with no heals and a clutch full control. It felt so good, you have no idea. I'm also one of the few people who is pretty happy that he didn't get a phase 3. Apparently that's a sentiment that people wanted him to have another phase, but I feel like him dying when he does makes sense. He tries to activate a phase 3, but his own pride in his abilities and his transmutation ultimately forces him undone. A death by his own hubris. It's so fitting. He earns the bronze medal today, rightfully so, but I'm gonna be real with you, any of my top 3 fights in this game would be worthy of a gold medal on a different day. At number 2, we have Lady Ethereal, the soul of the Central Core, creator of the Soulscape. Following Jie Chun, I wasn't expecting to fall into another Soul's grasp so quickly, but entering her Soulscape and experiencing this dreamlike level as it goes from a beautiful spring to a horrifying nightmare, it's some of the best visual design in the game. I actually remember going through this area after beating Gormang and randomly getting a horror-like jump scare, and now it all makes sense. It was hinting at Lady Ethereal's presence, as she was somehow affecting the Central Core, making it impossible for us to perceive her or the Brain Room. She's one of the more sympathetic characters, forced to work to a deadline that she couldn't sustain, experiencing severe trauma and keeping it behind a mask. In a way, she's responsible for the current state of affairs, as she knew the Soulscape project was flawed, but didn't have the nerve to speak on it, leading to the nightmares, leading to the Lady Ethereal boss fight. Before even touching on the fight itself, I firmly believe this is the most striking from a visual and aesthetic perspective on this list. The shifting of the background for each phase, the silhouette of Lady Ethereal that slowly opens up to reveal a horrifying eldritch butterfly, while the corpses of her co-workers hang on the trees, and the music, oh my god, it is my favorite track in the game. The vocals are haunting and beautiful with the way they shift in pitch and tone. It is perfect, like the cries of someone in pain wishing for it to end. The fight itself, fucking flawless. It's 3 phases, and something Nine Souls just does extremely well is that future phases innovate on the already existing moveset. You might get 1 or 2 new moves per phase in a boss fight, but most of the time, the game just presents you with what you already can handle, but in a more complex fashion. Phase 1 is all about learning Ethereal's moveset because she has very little health. She can slam down with a Crimson attack that in hindsight I could totally unbound counter. She can Tai Chi swoop across the stage, which you can parry to stun her and do internal damage. She can summon a purple orb, she can create crimson arrows to the left or right, she has a swooping claw attack, a series of 3 daggers she can fire, and the attack that definitely killed me the most, her 2 combo slash. Something about it just always made me mess up in phase 2. Once you know her patterns, you can kill phase 1 immediately. Phase 2 then sees 3 clones interchangeably attacking Yi. You have to find the real Lady Ethereal and then damage her. If you can get her with a talisman, the other clones vanish, allowing you to get that damage off, and that was my strategy. But sometimes you'd find her only to not be in a prime combo to talisman, so you have to let her go and keep dodging and parrying attacks until you reach a better point. It took a lot of time for me to adapt to Lady Ethereal, but once I did, I felt like a god getting through her moveset. Then her phase 3 Spirit Bomb killed me multiple times until I finally got the parry timing down to avoid it, leading into the most intense phase where she just doesn't stop. Every clone attacks, but you can strike them to cancel their attacks mid-animation if you're close enough. If you let them all build up, you'll be overwhelmed before you find the real deal. My advice is just to keep dodging and parrying until she either does the Spirit Bomb attack or the swooping air parry attack that stuns her, because those are guaranteed moments where you can hurt her relatively easily. Everything flows so well, each phase tougher than the last but never feeling unfair. It teeters on the edge as you're learning it, but looking back at my footage, I just see a beautiful boss fight that is striking, mesmerizing, and the second best in the game. At number 1, we have Igong, Soul of the Research Institute, Yi's mentor, and the final boss of Nine Souls. It is so rare for the final boss of a game to actually end up being the best fight. I've talked about this in my Soulsborne rankings to death. Ishin Ashina is the only final boss from a FromSoft game outside of Armored Core 6 where the final boss is my favorite boss. But Igong, I cannot believe I'm saying this, actually surpasses Ishin and might just be one of my new favorite bosses of all time. The highest level of praise I could ever give to a boss fight. Because Igong is perfectly designed. She is Yi's mentor, stronger than him in every way, who taught him his way of fighting. There's something very visceral about how one of her potential first moves is to use her own talisman grab on the player. It's so uncomfortable seeing your own ability finally used against you, and it comes out so fast, and sometimes at the end of combos that you're not expecting, and you're thinking, what? Her easiest attacks are her melee combos. She can approach you slowly with an upward slash into a downward slash, which then combos into either her double and triple poke moves, or her cross-up combo that has her dash past Yi as he parries. She has multiple Crimson attacks, her Talisman grab which can be Tai Chi kicked, which she may repeat a couple of times, a Crimson down slash where she'll often appear above you from behind and you need to dash towards her to avoid the initial slam, and then again to avoid her delayed anime dash slash. And sometimes she'll create an orb that if you don't unbound counter, will explode into flames around the floor. What makes Phase 1 so tough to initially learn is that Igong is as fast as she can go while remaining fair to the player. The developers do not want you to beat this boss by mistake. They do not want you to fumble your way into a victory. You will be forced to go up against her again and again and again until you can perfectly make your way to her phase 2. Now, I use full control, I like the extra damage, and I like finding moments to get off a 5-charged key charge blast. Plus, if I need to hit Egong with a 1 charge, it's a very quick setup. Phase 2, Egong gains a brand new attack, a Windblade combo that always starts with a Crimson Slash, 2 White Slashes, and another Crimson Slash. I went into this encounter with the Divine Hand Jade, which allows me to use multiple unbounded counters to perfectly block this and most of Egong's attacks, and combined with the Hedgehog Jade that adds internal damage for perfect parries, my build was set. The Windblade combo alternates between 2 variants, with the second having the first 3 slashes be the same, but then she dashes past you and does her anime triple slash, and if you unbounded counter these, you can really stack up the damage, as it's a predictable move that she will always use every second Windblade combo. I also found that in Phase 2, spacing her out was the best strategy. You don't need to parry every combo she has, she'll teleport behind you when she feels like it, and I was more than happy to have her use her new talisman grab into an upward swipe into a Crimson Slam combo, as it was super easy to predict and space out. Not to say that Egong is easy, this took me 4 to 5 hours of recording to master, but when you have that flow state against Egong, it just feels like she's designed in such a way that everything feels intentional. Not just her attacks, but your own skills and abilities. I read somewhere that Egong was the first boss designed for 9 Souls, and everything else in the game stemmed from her. It's an unorthodox take, but designing the best battle you can muster and then making the rest of the game as a lead up to that is ballsy as fuck, and it worked out for them. If you're going for the normal ending, this is the end of Egong's fight. But if you're going for the true ending, Egong's Phase 3 hits and takes her fight into the S++++ tier easily. You initially think she's about to get consumed by the mutations in her body, but then she forces it back in and goes full fucking anime on you with an ability on the wiki called Judgment Cut. She does 2 quick screen-wide slashes you have to parry, which will knock you into the air, followed by a third that can either be a white or crimson slash. If white, parry it. If crimson, jump. She can follow this up by doing the same move again. She can follow this up with her triple anime slash, or the one I most ran into, she can follow it up with her talisman grab, and if you dodge the move perfectly, you end up just above her so you can Tai Chi kick the grab for more internal damage. She can also use all her Phase 2 moves, but now the Windblade combo from Phase 2 also has the Judgment Cut as part of the rotation. And the music accompanying this final phase, I'm listening to it as I write this script, it isn't even Egong's theme. The track is called The Path for Us All, Yee's theme. The boss music has changed, and it's your boss music. You have pushed Egong into this corner, and as this triumphant theme plays, you die. You die again. You struggle. You get frustrated that you can't get the timing for Phase 3 down. You complain to your boyfriend, thinking, what am I doing wrong? You die on Phase 1 and Phase 2 a couple times, and then it clicks. It just works in your brain, and suddenly you're parrying like a god. You are doing it. You are managing every Judgment Cut. You're avoiding every slash, every combo. You're hyper aware. Fate is on your side, and you deal the final blow. I'd like to share my little reaction to beating her the first time, as I think it's the most vocal I have been in a long while. Headphone users, you have been warned. Yes!
Oh, you did it! Yay! Careful with it too. Yay!
I'm crying.
Whoa!
That was so intense.
Are you recording it?
Yeah, I don't know if I've got my.
Okay.
I am.
So I can see the things.
No,
okay,
it's recording. That's gonna be fun. I'm gonna have to include the the scream of me going yes at the end there in the video. Best fight in the game, easily. Easily. Because, like, at no point did I ever get, like, pissed with it. Like, it never felt unfair. It just felt like the highest amount of challenge the game could give without going into unfair. Yeah. Egong is insane. But at no point was she unfair. At no point did the hitboxes feel bad. At no point did her moveset feel so insurmountable that I wanted to give up. She kept me coming back for more. And that is what makes Egong of Nine Souls one of the best boss fights of all fucking time. Take a bow, Red Candle Games. You have earned it. And that's my list. Which Nine Souls boss is your favorite? Let me know down below, and be sure to parry that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all my future videos. I'm tempted to do a Nine Souls area ranking as well, so let me know if you'd be interested in that. I'd like to give a quick shout out to my YouTube channel members for supporting me for another month. It's $4.99. You get early access to future videos, you get a shout out in the description and at the end of videos as well, and you get special access to little Let's Plays that are only member exclusive. If you want to follow me, check out my Blue Sky. It's where I'm most active on social media, and I'll see you next time for another video. Adios.